Hi everyone, I am here with a true story. Actually, I believe there is 3 short stories in this one. The quote before the stories in this book is by David Ben-Gurion, Prime Minister of Israel at the time when this book was written. Anyone who doesn't believe in miracles is not a realist. And the title to these stories here, they all fall into the same category, Into the Arms of an Angel. These are going to be good. And these are true stories, remember? From our good old book here. On October 24th, 1993, 5-year-old Paul Rosen fell out of the window of his 6th floor apartment on New York's East Side, landed on concrete, yet sustained no external or internal injuries. Amazed, paramedics accustomed to removing a body from such accidents instead treated a very much alive little boy, reported New York's Daily News. Said a medical technician, it was like the angels caught him. Got a story about that at the end of this. Many readers also told stories of God suspending the laws of gravity. Several years ago, Janet Dean was thoroughly cleaning the master bedroom on the 2nd floor of her New Jersey home. I'd stripped the bed and taken the screen off our window to hang out the blankets and shake them, she says. There was a lightweight wicker chair in front of the window, which Janet had not yet moved. Just then, Janet's 2.5-year-old daughter, Deborah, dashed into the room. Deborah was a bundle of energy, always moving at a fast pace, as most 2-year-olds are. Curious and bouncy, the toddler sped by Janet and jumped up onto the wicker chair. It tipped backward, and in horror, Janet saw Deborah plunge head first out the 2nd-story window. God help! Janet heard herself scream as Deborah's feet slipped past her view. Instantly, Deborah's feet seemed to stop in midair. There was a momentary and impossible pause. Then Janet says, as if a camera had just been reversed, Deborah came back through the window feet first and ended up standing on that chair. Oh, Deborah! Janet grabbed her little girl and held her close. She had seen it. She knew she had. Deborah was proof of the miracle. I've stopped wondering about it, she says today. I just give thanks. Let me stop right there at this story. My niece, I'm not going to say which one, but my niece, she swears that when she was little, I would say probably about 4 at this time, we lived in another place. It was a big house, and we had our niece all the time, and we had concrete out along the sidewalk and stuff. And we was outside, and she was running down the sidewalk and tripped over the step, and she would have got her head busted open, her mouth, everything. She said she didn't fall. She said an angel picked her up, stopped her from falling, and lifted her back up. And she swears it to this very day. And I believe it. I just had to tell you that since that's, was reminded me of that, and it's similar. Okay. Jerry, an experienced tree trimmer, shared his story with KKAR listeners in Omaha. One day, he was about 30 or 40 feet up in a tree, sitting on a long branch while using a chainsaw to cut smaller shoots around him. I should have been more careful, Jerry admitted, but I hadn't thoroughly checked the limb I was sitting on. Suddenly, he heard a cracking sound. The branch gave way, and Jerry started to fall face up still holding the buzzing saw in front of him. Options flew through his mind as he plummeted. Should he drop the saw? What if it hit a worker on the ground? Could he toss it away? No, it was too heavy, and the lethal blades might cut him if he tried, but if he held the saw, the impact would cause it to land on him anyway. It seems odd that I weighed all those consequences during this brief fall, Jerry said, but since the fall itself would probably kill him, he decided to do nothing at all. Jerry hit the ground, but it felt as if he had fallen into a big nest of pillows rather than on a hard surface. Just a little bounce, then nothing, almost as if hands had cushioned the impact. Astonished, he lay there for a moment, then slowly got to his feet. Nothing was broken or even bruised. He astounded co-workers stood around him as he took a tentative step or two. Then Jerry remembered the deadly tool he had been holding. Where was the chainsaw? He found it a moment later by following the sound of its still whirling blades. It had landed harmlessly in an empty area across the yard, much too far for any man to throw it. No one on the ground had seen the accident. Jerry climbed the tree and resumed work a few moments later, but he hasn't stopped talking about what might have happened if heavenly hands hadn't been nearby. I know somebody that was a tree trimmer, fell from a tree here last year it was, and got killed. And this is the last one. Claire told listeners of KYBG in Denver about a day when he and his wife, their 2 preschoolers, and infant were traveling. Everyone was belted except the baby, who was lying in a bassinet on the back seat, Claire explained. We shouldn't have put her there, but we just weren't thinking. On a busy road, Claire lost control of the station wagon. It flipped over twice, then came to a stop right side up. Dazed, Claire looked first at his wife, who seemed to be all right. Then he turned to check the children and cried out in horror. His preschoolers were still belted, apparently unharmed. The bassinet was on the floor. But the wagon's tailgate had come open during the crash, and through it Claire could see the baby lying in the middle of the street. My first thought was that the baby was dead, and I had to pick her up before my wife did. Claire threw open the door and began racing. People were standing by the side of the street, all looking at the baby. Why didn't someone hold her? Why was she still there on the cement, so cold, so still? A sob rose in his throat, but as Claire reached his daughter, he saw that there was no need for tears. The baby was lying on the concrete with nothing underneath her. She was smiling, cooing, waving her arms without even a bruise to mark her fall. Then he realized why the witnesses had hesitated to touch her. It was a miracle, each of them told him. The baby came sailing through the open tailgate, at least 6 or 7 feet above the pavement. Then she had simply stopped in midair and floated gently down. And all them witnesses told him that. You ain't gonna tell me all of them are lying, and there's no other way it could be, or that baby would have been dead, laying there perfectly fine on the street. After the car rolled over twice, threw her out, and was smiling and cooing, not a scratch on her. You know that was an angel. All these stories of children are true, and I know it happened with my niece. The angel stopped her from falling and really hurting herself. And she'll tell you that herself. She swears to it, and she wouldn't lie. She would not lie. So I hope you guys enjoyed these stories, and I hope you guys have a good night. Good night, guys.